number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 193 of Sports Card Nation podcast. Happy to talk to my guest on today's program. You might remember about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had Nick Wasika on, a sports card photographer who does a lot of work for Upper Deck. Today, we're going to have Brian Rothmuller on, and he's also a sports card photographer. Different part of the country, does mostly baseball, not just baseball, but heavy baseball and heavy tops. And a lot of his work appears on our favorite tops cards, including SSPs and short prints and inserts and parallels. And it's important work that they do. You know, when we open packs and get the cards we love, I do it myself. I'm not criticizing anyone else. I'm throwing myself kind of under the same bus. I think we take for granted the work that goes into getting these shots. And, you know, we think these guys just show up at the game, you know, for an hour, take some shots, go home, you know, send some pics, and they're done. It'd be nice for them if it was that easy. But we know from talking to Nick, and we'll know from talking to Brian, not so fast, my friend, right? A lot more difficult than that. These guys are grinding, and they're not guaranteed a paycheck. It's based on, you know, what, someone uses. They get paid for their work as it's used. And so you got to be good at what you do as well. So there's a little pressure there. And I love the behind the scenes, and we got that with Nick, and we're going to get it even more today with Brian. So really excited for today's conversation. Speaking of excitement, if you're listening to this on show release day, we are just a few days away from the National in Cleveland, Ohio. My first time in Cleveland for any reason. Got a whole itinerary set for the week, going to the Rock and Roll Hall, the Guardians game, other things, obviously the Diamond King movie screening, and just a full week of events. I'll be walking the floor. Hope to meet a lot of you again. Hope to meet a lot of you again for the first time. If you see me, I am a personal guy. I won't bite your head off. Come over, shake a hand, talk about life, talk about sports, talk about hobby. Like to meet as many as we can. Also have Card Mensch cards signed by myself and Danny Black. Grab one of those as well. We'll have those on our person. So if you see us, mention it and get one of those as well. So enough rambling. Let's get a quick 30-second commercial break, and we're going to talk with sports photographer Brian Rothmuller.
Iron Sports Cards is your number one source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Excited to have the next guest on the Sports Card Shop guest line. He is a hobbyist collector, and he also takes some of the photos we're all so fond of seeing on our cardboard and chrome. Welcome, Brian Rothmuller, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Brian, I've had, card photographer on before. Very important to hobbyists, right? Without your work, we wouldn't get to enjoy the cards as we do. But you're also a collector yourself. Talk a little bit about kind of your hobby start, what you collect, and what moves your meter, so to speak.
Sure. So I started collecting in the early 80s when I was a little kid. The first sort of set that I remember was 82 Tops. That was sort of my intro. I don't remember opening too many packs, but I remember like looking through those cards and anytime I see that design, it definitely like brings back a lot of memories. 82 tops and then 82 Donruss. I remember getting packs and opening those, and just sort of took off from then, and collected through my teens, and like everyone else, once I got to college, it kind of slowed down, and I was always aware of them. Like, if I was at the store or Target or something, I would look at them and see sort of what was out there, but didn't really get back into collecting until I saw some of my pictures on cards, and then wanted to make sure I had some of those, and then just sort of got back deep into it. And anytime a new release comes out, it's like Christmas for me, because I get to see if any of my photos made the cards, and it's been a lot of fun. So,
what do you like personally collect? Do you have a player, a team?
So I just basically collect any cards that feature my photos. So I'll pick up some other stuff here and there, but mostly it's anything that has my photos on it. So I definitely like the ones that feature the throwback designs from the 80s, because those have a special place in my heart. If you would have told 10-year-old me that I'd have photos on cards that I was looking at that point, that probably would have just blown my mind. So definitely gravitate towards those. And obviously, with so much being so expensive these days, I can't get everything that has my photos on it. But just mainly picking up those, and just sort of tracking what is coming out and when it's coming out, and definitely spend a lot of time on eBay just looking at others people's photos that have gotten on cards, and what Topps and Panini like to use. And I spent a lot of time during COVID doing that, and I feel like it really helped sort of what my eye was looking for when I'm out working. So and definitely has exploded the amount of my photos that have been on cards since then. So
you mentioned even as a kid, looking at the cards and the photos, and to think, like you said, all these years later, you'll be directly involved into this whole process. When did you really, when did that become an aspiration, or how did it all kind of matriculate?
I mean, when I was little, I never thought that you could do that, like as a job. It was just like, okay, no one grows up and takes pictures for cards, but I would always be interested in the cards that had really cool action shots. I remember the 82 Topps. They had the in action cards, which were, I remember I had this Carlton Fisk one that was horizontal, and I just thought it was so cool how he was like, I think he's diving for the ball or stretched out. And it's funny, my mom actually moved from our house that she had lived in for 30 years last year, and I was up there looking at stuff, and I found like cards that I had created like when I was a kid, just with pictures and designs. And so I definitely had that creative itch, I guess, at that age. And when I got out of college, I worked in advertising for a long time, and then had some health things that I needed to step away, and was just sort of doing photography part-time, and then it just blew into a full-time gig. So just sort of kind of lucked into it, and then took off once I started doing it full-time. So
yeah, I mentioned to you before we started recording, Nick Wasik has been on the show. He does a lot of stuff with Upper Deck and hockey. You do pretty much Topps, Panini. I mean, talk about where we might find some of your work as far as on the cardboard. People opening packs. Where might your photography be illustrated?
So I would say probably 80% of my stuff is on baseball, just because I shoot so much of it. Then another percentage is golf. Upper Deck has brought back golf the last 4 years or so. So it's exciting to see some of my pictures of Tiger on cards. That was another wow moment for me, seeing that. And I don't shoot a ton of hockey. I've had some hockey cards, but I'm not like Nick, where that's like his passion. And didn't really grow up in the Bay Area. By the time I was sort of moving out of there, the Sharks had come in, and so I didn't really grow up with hockey. Hockey's a really hard sport to shoot. The people who shoot it have that eye and have that talent, and they're really good at it. So I'd say golf, football, basketball, a lot of the college stuff that's coming out now with Bowman U. I shoot a ton of college basketball, a ton of college football. So a lot of my pictures of Caleb Williams that I shot were on cards, and shot a bunch of Brawny this year. So it's a wide variety. I would say mainly baseball, but I do shoot a lot of other sports as well. So
how competitive of an industry is sports and sports card photography? Is it generally a fraternity where most people get along and kind of help each other out, or can it be competitive, or it really depends on the individual?
So it's interesting because, like, when I grew up in the 80s, each of these companies had their own photographers that they had full-time traveling and shooting games, and that's just not the way it is anymore. It just doesn't make any sense for them to do that financially, and I'm not sure exactly when that stopped, but for baseball buys all their photos from Getty Images, which is a wire service. So anyone who shoots for Getty or shoots for another company that publishes their photos on Getty, that's the stockpile that Topps goes through to grab their photos. So you'll see a lot of people, they'll post a picture and they'll be like, oh, why isn't this on a card? Well, if it's not a Getty photo, it's not going to make it on a card. So in terms of competition, I mean, there's a handful of us who are like card guys. You mentioned Nick. There's a guy in Colorado. There's a couple guys in New York, and they love seeing their photos on cards. They know what kind of photos go on cards. In LA, I mean, I feel like I'm sort of the only person who's kind of doing that. There's great photographers here, but they're focused on getting their photos in the newspapers and magazines and all those and online, and I'm kind of shooting in a different way in terms of shooting a lot of sort of behind the scenes stuff, like in the dugout, where I'm trying to get image variation shots and shooting a lot of batting stances, and just knowing what the different sets are and the different pictures that they're looking for. So I don't think, I mean, if you ask the guys who are sort of card guy photographers, they're doing it that way, and they're successful because of that. And it's not to say that other photographers who shoot for Getty don't get cards. It's just we have a slight advantage of knowing a little bit about the industry and a little bit about what they're looking for. And I'm more excited when my photos get on cards than if it goes online or gets in a magazine or anything like that. So I would say we're a rare breed, but we definitely bond together and share things that we see, and it's a fun little group we have.
No doubt. Kind of a two-pronged question, Brian, too. Do you think being a collector yourself gives you an advantage as a photographer? I think you touched a little bit on that. And what percentage of sports photographers, obviously you collect, I know Nick does as well, but what percent do you think the majority probably don't in the grand scheme of things? So two-pronged there. Does collecting give you an advantage as a photographer, and what percentage of the industry are collectors like yourself, would you say?
I would say it's a small percentage, but I feel like more people are sort of coming out of the woodworks lately and posting, oh, hey, I got a photo on a card, and it's sort of become cool again, I guess, maybe, but I would say it's a small percentage. In terms of having an advantage, totally. I mean, it's like, exactly what they're looking for. And it has become a challenge now that sort of Topps has gotten moved into Fanatics. They've sort of changed how they use photos on their cards, especially in their flagship brand. For a while, they just used sort of any photos. It was home, away, whatever uniform. And about 2 years ago, they started almost using exclusively home uniforms on all the flagship cards. So that cuts into my sales a little bit. I mean, I am lucky. I live in LA and I get to shoot Dodgers and Angels. I don't know if I'd say lucky to shoot the Angels this year, but yeah, just knowing that, and some of the other brands, they don't really, or products, they don't really care if it's a home or away jersey. But that's one thing I noticed, and yeah, just knowing what shots they like and what shots they use. A lot of people don't shoot batting practice, other photographers, unless it's like a big team coming in, like the Yankees or something like that. And I'm normally out there, every batting practice trying to get, one or two sort of fun shots that, could appear on an SSP or an image variation card. And so I'm looking for that. And the other photographers, they're definitely not looking for that. They're looking for something else. So that gives me an advantage. And, sometimes I'll be out there for an hour and not get anything at all. And sometimes I'll be out there for an hour and, get a bunch of stuff. So it's just sort of luck of the draw. The players might be in a good mood that day, or they might not be in a good mood that day. And some of the bigger players, they don't even come out for batting practice anymore. They just hit, underneath the dugout and the tunnels. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get stuff that I've seen on cards or would like to see on cards. And they're definitely been pushing a little more cooler images, I guess, a little more variety images, especially with all the image variations. I mean, it's kind of overkill with having an image variation for every card, but there have been some cool ones that probably wouldn't have existed if they just sort of stuck with what they were doing in the past. So yeah, for me, it's always finding the cool shots that show up on Stadium Club or an image variation. Those I get the biggest kick out of. So
yeah, I like the I'll use an analogy. Like you said, you could be out there an hour and not maybe get a great shot available to you, or another hour where you got multiple. It almost sounds like fishing. You throw your line in the water and you have a good hour, or no one's biting the worm for an hour.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
You mentioned a Stadium Club, one of my favorite brands for exactly probably the reason, what you do. There's some of the greatest photography is in that brand. You mentioned, do you like Stadium Club for the same reason as a photographer? Because you get some of that different shots than the standalone, close facial shot, or just a guy standing in the batter's box or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, Stadium Club was like, the first like premium brand too. So it was like, oh wow, I got a pack of Stadium Club. That's amazing. And I remember, they had the big like Kodak logo on the front of the package and the pack, and it was this premium sort of photo driven site. So I've always been drawn to it. I always like looking at what photos they choose for specific cards, and it gives me ideas for what I might go out and shoot for the next year. And yeah, it's definitely a favorite site. I mean, a favorite set. And yeah, I do like seeing it every time it comes out. So it's interesting though, because I'll see some photos and I'll be like, oh, they couldn't find a better photo than that, and then there'll be some that are just great that you're just like, wow, they really hit it on this one. So it's a fun set.
Yeah, it just kind of separates itself to me from the flagship. You get the glossiness, some of the different shots you're not getting in some of the other releases. Like you mentioned Topps has really went to home uniforms. Do you know why that is, or do you have a theory what that's
I mean,
about?
my theory is just like, if you're a fan of the team, you want to see them in the home uniform. So like if you're a Yankees fan, you want to see Judge in the pinstripes. You don't want to see him in the grays. So I'm sure it's just, a brand manager or a creative person just sort of said, this is probably what the fans would like to see. So that's sort of how I took it. But I haven't heard anything directly, but I've definitely noticed that's, if you look at the flagship cards, they're almost all home shot cards, unless it's a player that was either called up late in the season where he doesn't have a ton of photos in his home jersey, or got hurt early in the season or something like that. But most of them are all home jerseys. So So for Series 2, they did a lot of photoshopping of Ohtani cards and Soto cards, and all the players that switch teams, and they're pretty much all photoshopped into the white jersey as well. So even taking a road jersey of Ohtani and turning it into a white jersey of the Dodgers. So
yeah, the other question you mentioned, Topps really utilizes like Getty Images almost exclusively. Again, I'll acquiesce to your expertise. I would think it would make more economical sense, Brian, for them to use the photographers directly. I mean, Getty's not cheap. I've seen sometimes to use an image. Why do you think, again, theory-wise, why do you think Topps does that rather than just hire a photographer or a photographer pool? Why do you think? To me, it seems like that would be the more expensive route. Now, Fanatics is not short of money, but you think you'd want to save where you could as well.
Yeah, they buy so much. They buy so many images that they get such a discount on them. So it definitely saves them money doing the get. And then they have just a bigger pool of images to choose from too. You hire one photographer to shoot, say one Dodgers game in a week. Maybe some of the players don't play, or they go for 4 and you don't get anything. At least this way, there's a Getty photographer at every game. So you have all the shots covered. And I think financially it's cheaper on them to just buy them off the site based on just the quantity that they buy. They get such a discount at it. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't really think about that aspect and the amount they're probably acquiring. They're getting sort of that quantity discount, if you will. Do you stay with what you shoot? Do you stay pretty much on the West Coast? How far do you get to travel for?
Yeah, I don't travel too much, mainly West Coast. When my mom lived up in the Bay Area, I would go up there quite a bit to shoot, either a Niners game or some Giants games. But living in LA, I mean, there's plenty to keep me busy with two baseball teams. I mean, there's San Diego too, which is close by. So I'm never short of events to work. So there's definitely plenty out here. And when it was a bigger advantage before the MLB started this new schedule where everyone sort of played everyone, because I would have American League team and a National League team here, so I would sort of get everyone. But now with everybody sort of playing more teams, that advantage sort of went away. But yeah, I mean, I'm covered here plenty with 2 NFL teams and 2 NBA teams and 2 baseball teams and hockey teams, and so I'm in a good spot. Plus the teams are good except for the Angels right now, but yeah, that's a whole nother story probably.
Yeah, I know your schedule probably varies, but in an average, 7-day week, how many days are you shooting? Would you say?
It just depends. I mean, it normally works out where if the Dodgers are here, the Angels are on the road. There's very rare cases where they're both at home. That's only for like a couple days. So right now the Dodgers are about to go on the road, so I'm shooting Angels tonight, and then I think I have another game on Thursday, Angels game. So I shoot less Angels games than I shoot Dodgers games, just based on the players, and with Trout hurt right now, it's it's sort of slim pickings. I have the A's tonight against the Angels, and then the Tigers versus the Angels. So yeah, those will probably be some games that will be a little not as good as some of the other games. But yeah, for a Dodgers series, normally I'm shooting like maybe 2 out of the 3 games that they're playing. I have the biggest Ohtani curse right now. I haven't been to one game this season that he's hit a home run. I didn't work at all last week, and
so he doesn't watch you. So he doesn't really
hit a
watch
home
you.
run at every game, pretty much, that I haven't been. It's like a running joke now. It's like, just if he knew like he was batting like 200 when I went to the games, he probably would just pay me not to show up. But yeah, it's bad right now. I haven't gotten a home run. Last year I was at the game where he blew out his elbow. So yeah, he probably doesn't want any part of me.
So you're the guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's all my fault. So, but yeah, it's been weird. Like this year, I think I shot like 5 of almost all of Yamamoto's home starts, including the one he got hurt at. And so my luck was good with that. But yeah, Ohtani, I don't know. It's just a lot of walks, a lot of singles. He's stolen a ton of bases, but I mean, you can only get so many photos of that. And then I see these beautiful pictures of him staring at these long home runs that he's hitting while, I'm at home, not working, and it's just sort of laugh now. So
now, Brian, do you set your own schedule, or are you like?
It's a combination. Yeah, I can set some of it. Some of it just depends. We have a couple of photographers here, so we balance it out. I can set it more with the Dodgers than the Angels. There's another guy who shoots the Angels who's been shooting them for years. He used to be the team photographer, so he sort of gets first crack. I get second crack, but I sort of get first crack at the Dodgers. And yeah, I try to balance it out. I mean, I do have a 2-year-old at home, so it's hard when I get home late or not home for dinner. So it's definitely been sort of a balance in time to try to figure out how often I work and the cadence of that. And I think I've sort of settled down to a good cadence. But when I'm not working, I have images that I need to edit. So normally at a game, it's 30 or so images go up either during or after the game. And then I'll post maybe up to 100 more in the coming days after that. So yeah, I shoot probably 2,000 images a game. So I have to go through all those after, and there's always work to be done. I always sort of get behind in my editing, especially when I work a bunch of games in a row. It just sort of piles up. So even when I'm not at a game, there's definitely work to be done. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, Brian. People who don't realize or don't really think about things think like, hey, this guy's got and you have a great job. I think you agree. But like, he just gets to take pictures and then he's done. They don't realize the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, the editing. Hey, I like this shot. This didn't turn out the way I hoped. So you delete that. Or they don't realize the work. It's not just going to a game, taking a bunch of pictures, and you're done. Maybe to someone who doesn't know, that's what they think. I realized that just from, being in the industry, talking with Nick prior and stuff. There's work that goes into it. The other misconception, and I'll let you touch on this too, is like, oh, you get to watch, sports for free, but you're working. Like, you can't really get caught up in the moment because you never know when that next shot's gonna be. So kind of talk about that as like, you're at the game, but you're at the game in a different perspective than your average fan. But maybe it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely photographers out here that shoot for various publications, and they're sort of there to shoot, but also just to be seen and sort of be at the game. And that's just sort of not how I see it at all. I mean, the minute you get wrapped up in a game is the minute you miss a shot. Especially right now, it's like sort of the dog days of summer. I've shot so many games already this year that everything starts to look the same out of my camera. And it becomes a challenge at a boring game to keep focused. And there was an Angels game a couple weeks ago where, my mind was going and wasn't totally focused in the game. And I missed like 3 shots, and I was just like, okay, I need to keep it together, because everyone around me was sort of doing the same thing too. It was like, everyone was just kind of talking, and it was a blowout, but I missed a shot that could have made me money. So I need to be focused. The second you become a fan is the second you just miss everything. You get wrapped up in it, and it's not good. So I mean, a lot of people, when I tell them what I do, they go, "Oh, that's so cool! You get to you could be in the dugout and do this, and do you talk to players and blah blah blah?" And like, okay, it's totally not like that. Like, if a player says something to me, then sure, I'll engage. But like, it's like they're there to do their job, and we're here to do our job. Like, and it's not really professional to just start talking to someone and they're not there to talk to you. They're there to play a game. So occasionally, a player will ask to see a picture or something. That I took a picture of the Kansas City Royals, Sal Perez, in the dugout before the game, and it's like maybe an hour, 45 minutes before the game, and he was about to go out to the bullpen to warm up the catcher, and he is one of the players that blow the best bubbles of any players in the major leagues. Like, as a photographer, I love big bubbles. I love eye black. I love sunglasses. Like anything that just like brings something else to the photo besides just the normal stuff. So he was blowing bubbles in the dugout. He was just sitting in there, and I was taking some pictures, and he blew this huge one, and I took a picture of it, and he laughed, and he's like, that was a good bubble. And so I showed it to him, and that sort of interaction is very rare. It was so early, like the game hadn't started, there was no one else around, like, and we were sort of having a moment. Like, he knew I was taking pictures. He was okay with it. Some of the players, like, you stick a camera towards their, in their direction before the game, you can just tell they don't want it. Like, you sort of just, you're not going to get a good picture out of it, and you're just going to annoy them. So, there's a fine line between doing that and not doing it.
Some awesome insights from Brian Rothmuller right there. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, don't fret. Part 2 next Friday as well. So this was the first part of our 2-part conversation with Brian. So come back next Friday and see the conclusion of our hobby and sports card photography conversation.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Hello, this is Mark Hoyle, and remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
Hobby News Daily is your homepage of the hobby, providing original writing, exclusive gem rate data, a daily morning minute podcast, and some of the best content creators in the hobby. Remember, hobbynewsdaily.com and at Hobby News Daily on social. Happy collecting!